Hey y'all, my name is Annie and welcome to my channel, Eat, Drink, and Be Reading. And today we're going to talk about what you should read after you finish Tiger King. So I'm assuming most people know what Tiger King is, especially in the midst of this quarantine. It has been a highly popular show on Netflix. It's a documentary series about Joe Exotic, who owns this zoo in Oklahoma, and then Carol Baskin, who owns a big cat rescue in Florida, and Doc Ansel, who owns a zoo in Myrtle Beach. And really those are places you can pay to go and like spend time and pet and whatever big cats, tigers, etc. And they did this documentary series with the main focus being on Joe Exotic, who is this seemingly just like this really oddball character. He's just kind of crazy and weird, but he's also a pretty bad dude. Just the way he treats people and the way he treats animals and uses them all for his own profit and gain. But it's, I think, like an 8-episode series on Netflix. Now, because you can binge it and you can watch the whole thing, I'm sure a lot of you are done. And there's a Tiger King-sized hole in your heart that you want filled. And that is what I'm here to do today. I have 5 books for you, and none of them have to do with animals. So, if that was not your favorite part of Tiger King, no worries. None of these books have to do with animals. If you did like that about Tiger King, I think there's still things you'll find very fascinating and interesting and that you will enjoy on the list. So let's get started. A lot of these books kind of have to do with like who is the real bad guy. Whether that's in a whodunit kind of situation, or it's not maybe revealed till the end that there's someone behind all of it that you didn't even know. Because the impression that I'm getting is that a lot of people really like Joe Exotic, at least in the beginning of the series. He's this just very strange, weird guy. And they don't like Carol Baskin. They think she murdered her husband. But maybe Joe is, well, not maybe, he is a much worse guy than people begin thinking he is. So, is he the bad guy? Is he not? Is Carol the bad one? Who, are they just all bad? And I have some books that kind of dig into that a little bit. And so that's what we're going to talk about. The first book, let's get started, because that was a very long intro. The first book is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is a middle grade novel. If that puts you off, don't let it. First of all, middle grade is a wonderful, wonderful genre that everyone should read, no matter how old you are. There's some just really excellent middle grade. And The Girl Who Drank the Moon is one of my favorites. It was one of my favorite books I read last year. 5 stars. So great. It's, I don't know if you classify it as kind of like fantasy-esque, but it's about this town called the Protectorate, and every year they sacrifice one of the babies that was born to a witch in the forest. They leave the baby in the woods and they leave it, and the witch takes the baby, and they think this witch kills the baby, and they've been doing this for years and years and years and years and years. Actually, the witch has no idea why this town is leaving a baby in the forest, but she picks up the baby every year and takes the baby to another part of the country and finds adopted parents for the baby. And on the way, she feeds the baby Starlight. Well, one year she accidentally feeds the baby Moonlight. This baby becomes like magical, and so the witch decides to raise her herself. There's some really kind of oddball, quirky characters, which maybe is what you felt like Joe was in the beginning. There's a swamp monster. There's this little tiny dragon that thinks he's this big dragon. But there's also this town that has leadership that requires them to sacrifice a baby every year. Why do they do this? How long have they done this? Why are we listening? Are the leaders protecting us? Are they not? I just think that between the quirky cast of characters and just some serious bad guys in it too, if you liked Tiger King and you want to try out middle grade, The Girl Who Drank the Moon might be a great start. Book number 2 is Where the Crawdads Sing, and that is by Delia Owens. It's a story about a young girl who was left by her family to grow up alone in their little house on a marsh in North Carolina. I live in North Carolina, and I get that the author is like a nature journalist or something like that. I don't know where in North Carolina she's describing. It sounds just like South Carolina to me, by the way. But she grows up alone in this marsh, has to raise herself, doesn't go to school, all of that. She meets a few friends along the way. I think she's known as like Marsh Girl to the town. But years later, she's arrested for the murder of this like very highly respected young man in her small town. And the question is, who did it? Who did kill him? Was it her? Was it not? How does it end? Is she convicted? And so it bounces back and forth between the few, like, present day and then, like, trial and her past growing up alone in the marsh. Just as, like, the tigers and the exotic animals are the backdrop of Tiger King, so is, like, the natural marsh almost like a character of its own. It's a very alive backdrop for this story. Book number 3, Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin. When Aviva, the main character, was in college in Florida, I believe, she worked for a congressman and they have an affair. And the story, like it always does come out. And of course, unsurprisingly, his career is fine, but her life is destroyed, and it follows her all the rest of her life. And so it's following Aviva, and it's following the wife of the congressman, Aviva's mother and grandmother, and there's the little young girl in Maine, and you're wondering, what does this girl have to do with the rest of the story? And while it's clear to us, the reader, who is the bad guy, like that the congressman got off scot-free in a way that he should not have, and she took all the blame, the America in the story, I would argue probably the America in real life, it's not so clear to them. Like, they blame her, and she gets, all the punishment for it, which some would argue is what happens in Tiger King with Carol Baskin, that she gets all the blame for murder of her ex-husband and for the demise of Joe, etc. But maybe she shouldn't. I don't know. So, book number 4, The Professor and the Madman, a tale of murder, insanity, and the making of the Oxford English Dictionary by Simon Winchester. This is a nonfiction. So this book and the next book are both nonfiction. It's narrative nonfiction. It's telling the story of the making of the Oxford English Dictionary. Just like Tiger King is telling a broader story of big cat people and big cat zoos and shelters, telling that story by focusing mainly on one person, one oddball person even, Joe Exotic. The Professor and the Madman is telling the story of the making of the Oxford English Dictionary by focusing on one of the contributors, Dr. W.C. Minor. who is writing his contributions from an asylum where he is imprisoned for murder. And it's telling his story, how he got there, telling the story of the guy the editor, I believe, of the dictionary, and how they meet. And just, some of it is just really sad and heartbreaking. Some of it is very fascinating. But I find it, I like Tiger King for that very reason of like telling one person's story in order to explain a larger matter. That's actually what's going to happen in the 5th book as well, which is another narrative nonfiction, and that is The Indifferent Stars Above, the harrowing saga of a Donner Party Bride by Daniel James Brown. Yeah, again, it focuses on one person and uses the story of one person to tell the story of a larger incident, and this is telling the story of Sarah Graves. Focuses on her story in order to explain the larger story of the Donner Party. And Sarah is a teenager, I think an older teenager. She gets married at the beginning of the book. And her family move west, and they become a part of the group that becomes known as the Donner Party. They get stuck in the Sierra Nevada mountains in winter. They can't get out because of the snow. And what happens when they run out of food, and we see many of them result in cannibalism. And it is harrowing, it is heartbreaking, but it is gritty, and it is a fascinating story where not a lot of good stuff happens, which, let's face it, is Tiger King. Really, these last two feel like documentaries in book form. And a lot of narrative nonfiction is like that, but I think it's because of the focus on one particular character to tell a larger story really makes them feel like documentaries. There's definitely more action in The Indifferent Stars Above than there is in The Professor and the Madman. You want more of a character-driven story, The Professor and the Madman. If you want a little more action, The Indifferent Stars Above, but they're both pretty hard to read in parts. Just like Tiger King is hard to watch in parts. So, those were 5 suggestions of, like, if you like Tiger King, then you should read this. I hope that helps you, gives you some entertaining things to read during quarantine. And if you like this, please let me know. Like and subscribe. Write in the comments, what would you suggest people read after watching Tiger King? If there's any other shows you're interested in seeing one of these on, I would love to do that. Yeah, let's chat.